So you can see that we have all 8 people.
9.
9.
9.
Okay, so today's speech is going to be covering electric cars. Overall, I'm going to be covering, most importantly, the performance aspects of the cars, the overall impact that they have on the environment, and also their operation. A car that I'll be oftentimes referring to during the speech is the BMW i3. The i3 is a somewhat affordable car at $40,000 as compared to other electric cars. Secondly, I'll be referring to the Tesla Model S, which is an $80,000 car. Both in price as well as its performance, it's comparable to that of Chevy Corvette. I'll talk about the general operation of the cars, but also I'll cover innovative designs with the electric cars. And then lastly, I'll cover both the good environmental impact of electric cars that we see and like to believe, as well as the negative impact of electrical cars. So here, on the left, I have a comparison of the BMW i3's performance specs, just a small sampling, as compared to the Tesla Model S's specs. You'll notice on the first line where I cover the overall acceleration of the BMW i3 that it's very comparable to a car such as my Hyundai Elantra. It's fast enough that you could pull out and maneuver your way into traffic, but not fast enough that you would want to street race someone. Then you compare it to the Tesla Model S, which has a much larger battery, it's much more efficient, and has really an overall completely different design than the BMW i3. It's also capable of going from 0 to 60 in 4 seconds, which is faster than a 2015 Mustang GT, and comparable to Chevy Vet. Not as fast as the Stingray, but fast enough. Then when we look at the overall top speed of the electric cars, we notice that they're able to go fast enough for your typical driving, whether it be down back roads, over an interstate, or on the highway. The biggest downside to the electric cars is what's on the third bullet, which is that they only have a range of 80 miles to 265 miles. 80 miles being the car that's $40,000 versus 265 miles, which is the car that's $80,000. With an 80-mile commute, you could make your way, possibly, to work and back. Ideally, that sort of car would be used for driving around town, if town is close. With a car that's $80,000, you can get 265 miles, which would be a 4 to 5 hour commute if your destination has a charging station, which charging stations currently are not widely available. Lastly, the biggest advantage to an electric car is its handling. With the conventional combustion engine car, you have a giant hunk of metal that sits at the front of your car, your engine. This is a giant downside in that you can't really disperse the mechanical components in the way that you can with an electrical car. With an electrical car, you need really 2 different things. You need a battery for a source of power, and you need a motor in order to create motion. As shown by the picture on the left, you can see that there's not a giant anything located there. Instead, your battery is completely across the entirety of the car, and then your motors are located at either end of the car, or both, if you want an all-wheel drive vehicle. What that equates to is a lower center of gravity, which is why I showed the picture on the right. The lower center of gravity you have, the better your car is at handling turns. So, how does an electric car work? Well, here is a working model of an electric car. We can see that it's very similar to that of a combustion engine, in that you have transmission, you have an engine, you have a drive shaft, and then you have a rear gearbox. Well, that's a very simple design, and it's something that we can easily wrap our heads around, but it's definitely not innovative, and it doesn't make use of the actual electric engine. In this case, you can see that the engine on this car is actually located at the wheel, rather than in one central area. This has benefits, but also has detriments, like any design. Benefit to this is you can actually spread out the weight of the car. The detriment to it is you have what's called unsprung weight. Unsprung weight is weight that's not suspended at all. In this case, your weight on this car, which is mostly going to be from A, the battery, and B, the motors, is below the actual suspension. That's going to cause a problem when you start trying to handle turns. turns because the bottom end of the car will literally slide out from underneath the top end. So it becomes bottom heavy. Then you look back at the Tesla Model S design, which incorporates both of those. You have the fully dispersed mechanisms for the car, being both battery and the motors. You still have a suspension, which the suspension in this case is for the rear portion above the actual drivetrain, and in the forward portion on the tires themselves. In later versions that Tesla came out with, they also made an all-wheel drive version in which they incorporated motors in the rear and in the front. So, the last thing that I want to cover is the actual environmental impact of electric cars. Most of the time when we think about an electric car, we think about the giant sticker on most electric cars that consists of zero emission, which is great. People think that zero emission thing is a wonderful selling tool, and it is a very good thing that we can take away from the actual impact that our combustion engines, such as this diesel truck, have on the environment. But there's more to it than that. When you look at the actual building and construction of the lithium-ion batteries that go inside of electric cars, you realize that they require a lot of minerals that are somewhat scarce. Minerals like copper, such as this copper mine, and aluminum. And the more that we start to move towards electric cars, we also need to move towards finding alternatives to the key important elements that go inside the batteries, such as those two. Secondly, how do we provide power to the batteries that run our electric cars? Well, we would like to think that all of the energy in the United States at this point would be renewable, but unfortunately it's not. This pie chart's a really good example of where our energy comes from throughout our country. We're doing better than countries like China, who largely rely on coal, but we're still not completely renewable. So, though we're taking away from the actual emissions while the car is being driven, we are adding to the emissions while the car is being powered so it can be driven. And lastly, we need to talk about battery disposal. So, the largest part about battery disposal would be that a lot of the elements that go into the batteries, as we talked about before, are rare earth metals. In this case, they either need to be extracted before the batteries are disposed of and the harmful waste are added to our environment from the acid and the other chemicals that we can't break apart and recycle. But luckily there have been innovations to the batteries, in which case you consider a battery that goes inside of a car. That battery is useful up until 80% of its charging capacity is what remains. So in this case, you can use a battery up until 20% of its charging capacity is gone, leaving the 80% viable inside the car. Then that battery can be used for other purposes, such as storing energy for a solar-powered home, which is what Tesla is pushing for now. So, in conclusion, I would like to again mention that the electric car does offer benefits as far as performance and the handling and the ability to disperse the different components to different areas. It can offer benefits to the environment, but unfortunately, because of our current structure for how we get energy, the electric car really doesn't offer a giant alternative for fuel emissions. And lastly, the overall operation of the car is still in development, as shown by the different innovative designs from both Tesla, BMW, and also Ford, which I didn't give credit to during this, but Ford's battery was the first battery that we saw, the large clunky one. But in conclusion, electric cars are developing, and hopefully we will truly see a zero-emission car in the future. So, do we have all 8 people? Glad you guys stuck around.